Rep. Charles Harbeck.
Here.
And alternate Steve Malone, I guess he's not going to be here anymore, but alternate Steve Malone, he's not here. Alternate Jane Johnson, not here. And alternate Christine Reynolds.
Here.
Christine Reynolds, sorry. So we have a full board, so we don't need to see anyone. So our agenda for this evening is approval of the minutes for February 27th and March 13th. Public hearing, which is a continued public hearing from the 13th. Black Belt LLC has submitted an application for the construction of a drive-through restaurant at the southern corner of Marcy Hill Road and Route 12. Subject property is shown in tax map 220, lot 5, and located in the business district. And any other business as may be required. So at the beginning of it, we don't need our usual motion for regional impact because there's nothing different on our agenda, so we will skip that. And we don't have Jane here to approve the February 27th meeting, so minutes, so we will postpone those until the next meeting. We need Jane for that. And so it moves us to the March 13th minutes. And we have a motion to approve the March 13th minutes. Motion made by Richard, seconded by Brandon. Is there any further discussion? Anything like that? If not, all those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? Okay, and it brings us to our continued public hearing, which is the site plan review. So, how do we stand on those guys?
They are still waiting for their traffic study.
Yeah, and they had said the last time, what, might be 5 weeks or something like that?
Yeah.
So they still stand by that, or they haven't heard from them?
Still stand by it.
Okay. So, let's see. Their 65 days are up on April 19th. And they've already said that they would be up for extending it if the planning board wishes to do so, which I don't see any reason why the planning board shouldn't do that. So if we extended them another 65 days, that would bring them to June 23rd. And that would be plenty of time for them to get their traffic study in. So I'd say that'd give us about 5 more meetings in between there. And their traffic study, if it's 5 weeks, I don't know, it would be maybe in May or something if they get it like that, so. Does that sound like we ought to do that? Give them an extension? Okay, motion to extend them another 65 days?
Correct.
And that would give them till, when is that, June 23rd?
Does that mean that they could show up at any point between now and then?
No, no,
Please.
no, we will schedule them, we'll do that motion after this. We'll make a motion to give them an extension if we want to. And then after this, we will say when that next meeting is going to be. If it's going to be a continued public hearing, we have to give a date certain. So, motion by Michael York to extend them another 65 days. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Richard. Is there any further discussion?
I'm just wondering why the 65-day increment?
It may not take 65 days, but we might as well give them another 65 days. That gives them until, I think it was June, sometime in June there. So that should be plenty of time for them to get their drawings revised and their traffic study done. And it gives the planning board more time to look into whatever they have proposed, because they don't have a tenant to go in there.
Right.
So there's no real hurry on their part, and there's no real hurry on our part either. As long as we, we'll let the residents know, or butters know at these meetings when the next public hearing is going to be, so they can be here for that. So, which brings us to that.
Well, you have a motion, have a vote on
Yeah. Okay. Any other further discussion? Then all those in favor?
Well-
Nope. No, we're having a motion. All those in favor, indicate by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? Yes.
Well, my question is,
Can you state your name? for the
why,
Can you say your name for the record?
oh, Amanda Gunseth.
Okay.
I'm just curious, because obviously I've never done these board meetings, but why is it such a push to extend for something on a property that hasn't been allowed to have any type of building on in that same location since like the 80s?
Well,
So I guess I just don't understand.
it's not a push.
Process.
It's a consideration, and it's not a push to do it. But if there's nothing really that the board, myself, and the board, I guess, too, can see why they shouldn't get an extension. I mean, there's no real reason why they shouldn't. So we're extending them a courtesy, and as long as the planning board agrees to it and the applicant agrees to it, it can extend beyond the 65 days, and it can extend to whatever the planning board wants it to extend to. statutes say we have to deal with a project within 65 days. That's to protect the applicant, so the planning board just can't string them on forever and have them back and forth meetings and run them out of money or whatever they want to do. The state says you guys have to make a decision in 65 days, unless the applicant agrees to an extension and the planning board agrees to an extension, which is what we just did here. But again, there's no push to it, it's just a courtesy.
It seems like he, on the agreements of trying to like continue it, so I'm just onlooking just because I'm an abutting property owner and I have literally spent my entire life there, minus like a few years in my early 20s, and I've watched the change of the wetlands, and I've seen the property exactly next to him at 427. The wetland area in behind used to be so much smaller and overgrown, and I was just looking at it the other day, and it's all water, and that's coming towards me. So that's why I'm just
All those
wondering
things
why.
We'll discuss all those things when we continue the public hearing, because those are pretty much our public hearing items to discuss.
Okay.
We're gonna continue the public hearing, we're doing it now, but we're
Right.
gonna continue the public hearing when all the rest of the residents and stuff, our butters are here. But yeah, I see your concern there, and those are good concerns, just bring them up at our meetings when we have the next public hearing.
Okay.
Which brings us to that. Let's see, they aren't gonna have a traffic study done for a while, so let's see. So, I think in May, they may have their traffic, so there's no sense continuing this public hearing to the next meeting, and then the next one after that, until they finally get it. As long as we set a date certain for the abutters, then they will know when the public hearing is gonna be, and we can schedule a few meetings. So I would suggest we do it, schedule for the May 8th meeting. That's our first meeting in May.
I understand what you're saying, but in our last meeting, I believe you stated that it had to be done per meeting.
Yeah, we're gonna go meeting to meeting, but we're extending it. Yeah, I figured that they would be back, with their traffic study, or they'd have something for us at one meeting or the next meeting, but it doesn't look like they are coming. They haven't been back here, and they aren't gonna have their traffic study still done for another 5 weeks, as they told us the last meeting. So we can extend it, we can skip a few meetings as long as we give it the date and time certain for that meeting, for the abutters. But yeah, I did say that.
No, I mean, I'm not disagreeing.
Yeah, no.
But I'm just stating that what was said,
Yeah.
and we don't want to really be in conflict with what you
No.
established.
And again, yeah, that was just to give them a chance to come in and state a case or give us updates, but I don't think they're gonna do that.
That would also give them time to redesign their site.
They need to
Do
do
they
that as well.
need a complete redesign?
They do, yeah, right.
So our agendas will not show a continuation of that site plan review, every agenda from today until then.
Unless we wanted to, unless we go to it, but I don't think there's gonna
I'd
be anything for
rather
the
not,
next meeting.
because
Yeah.
then people don't know they're coming or not.
Exactly, well, they kinda have to come, yeah, if it's scheduled for that. And again, if it doesn't look like, Adam says too, it doesn't look like they're gonna be back with anything until they get that traffic study. So we can bring it to our first meeting in May, they should have all this stuff together by then, one would think. So, that sound about right? Yes? No?
Yeah.
If so, we need.
I think it's fair to concerned citizens.
Yep, it is. Yep, so we need a motion in that regard to continue this public hearing until our meeting of May 8th.
I'll make that motion.
Motion by Brandon, is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Michael, is there any further discussion?
If things are available prior to our extended number or date, they can apply to come in sooner than that or not?
No,
Okay.
no, it'll be May 8th. Okay, all those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, it'll be until May 8th. So you don't have to keep coming here for every single meeting, but under that, definitely.
I also recommend calling the planning office prior to the planning board meeting, just so you're not wasting your time coming down here. You can just call us, we'll let you know what's going on.
Alright. I've been trying to do diligence to check the websites and seeing it, so I haven't seen it, but
Yeah.
call you guys.
Yeah,
Is there an extension or no?
112.
One extension, 112.
So that doesn't use up the entire 65 days, you said that was like the end of June, so we would, on May 8th, we would still be in a position where they weren't ready, we would extend it.
It's about in the center, so we'll have, we may not extend it again. We'll see how ready they are. If they don't seem to be ready or really know what they're doing, so the planning board can decide not to extend it and just make a decision on it and let them come back for another application.
So I just want to understand, so, because obviously the May 8th, we've extended it, so it'll go till June 23rd, but if they don't have it done by the May 8th,
No,
it's up
there's
to you guys.
a few different things, yeah, I know it's confusing. So we've given them until the 23rd of June, or actually we've given ourselves till the 23rd of June to make a decision on this application.
Okay,
And we've decided to continue the public hearing, not to our next meeting, but until May 8th, to make certain that they get their traffic study in and all their drawings and everything here, so we can actually have a public hearing, or continue public hearing,
okay.
so.
So if they don't have it on May 8th, then,
If they don't have it on May 8th, we will continue it again, because we've given them an extension, we can continue all the ways to.
June 23rd.
Probably a little bit, yeah, a little bit before the 23rd, because we meet, one
Okay.
meeting is before that, 3 days before that, so. It is run out then, we have to make a decision on the last meeting before it runs out,
Gotcha.
whether or not to
Okay.
continue. And let's see, what else? Not much, really, is there? We do, we have, let's see, conditional use permits. Anybody have any discussion on that?
Well, I went through all of our, and as far as I'm concerned, every special exception we have could be a conditional use. And I say that because when they come in with their application, we have it in front, we have all the information in front of us.
Yep.
To make a decision on that.
Yeah.
And I feel this board can make a decision just as easy as the DBA can. Plus the fact that the DBA meets once a month, and sometimes not for a month or two because they can't find enough members to show up. So are we gonna get into this situation like we're talking about before, where we're taking too long to make decisions?
So, you're talking about a special exception,
Right.
you know, and we're talking about conditional use, which are very similar, except that special exceptions can only be seen by the plan, by the
Right.
ZBA,
Right.
and they have the specific criteria that they have to go by.
Right.
If we set up conditional use permits, then we can use some of those criteria if we want, but we can also add on criteria as to what that special thing is gonna be,
Right.
that conditional permit
Exactly.
for that specific part of the zoning. We'll say wetlands, for instance. But special exceptions are all through our zoning ordinance, and we have them just for another set of eyes on whatever is gonna go in there. And you're right, it is like a conditional use permit, but yet it's slightly different because you only have that limiting criteria. That criteria is set by the RSAs.
Yeah, exactly. I was gonna say, RSA are different.
Yeah, but our conditional use permits can be set, the conditions so far can be set by us.
And in one of these handouts, this is the look before you leap handout, they talk about the conditional use permit is adopted by municipalities to implement innovative land use controls, which is that special section in the law.
Right.
And so I don't think it's intended to mean all kinds of development, just the things that are innovative land use controls may include, but are not limited to, timing incentive, phase development, intensity and use incentive, transfer of development and density and development rights, planned unit development, cluster development, impact zoning, performance standards, flexible and discretionary zoning, and the list goes on, but it's not saying, you know, everything that you might apply a special exception to.
But we could, and what he's saying is, we could remove some of the items under special exception in part of the zoning and use it with a conditional permit, if we put the conditions that it could be met. You know, we could remove them, but I wouldn't suggest doing that. They work fine under special exceptions. We're just talking about conditional use, mainly right now, anyways, for wetlands.
So I put that out there just to get a discussion going.
Good
Yeah.
job. You got me thinking.
But it's good to discuss that for sure, because they are basically the same.
Under the 67421, where it's referencing wetlands, would it not be prudent for us to solicit from the Conservation Commission any of their suggestions as to how to minimize impact in the, you know, if someone comes through and is looking for that kind of condition?
It definitely would be wise for us to talk to them about what the conditions have to be in order to issue the conditional approval. Because, you know, there may be certain circumstances, somebody's gonna come in and want a dredge and fill permit to put a driveway across, something like that. So we're gonna have to know what conditions are there so that they can do that. And yeah, you still on the Conservation Commission, yeah. So if we met with the Conservation Commission, we could get, what they would accept as a special exception, if you will, that someone could put a driveway through there as long as they didn't fill X amount of land, or as long as they mitigated X amount of land over here, or whatever those conditions happen to be.
They had no other options.
No other options would probably have to be in there, yeah, or reasonable options.
And another thing I was wondering is, I know we usually don't take cost into a factor, but what if they did have another option to put in, we'll say, a 6-mile long road to get to their property, but going through the wetland was a lot more cost efficient for them to do it? Would we be able to put something like that in there?
I think costs should be added to the conditional use. Yeah, it should be. We normally do not do that. We don't have to do it in site plan. We can, but we don't have to. We have to under workforce housing, but we don't have to anywhere else in the zoning. But yeah, that should be an issue, I think, for conditional use, just so that, someone isn't just blown out of the water of costs for developing their own piece of property.
So I get really confused on this. So we're the planning board, we look at site plans, stuff like that, and the enforcement officer looks at single-family homes, right? We don't approve single-family home construction. So let's say a single-family home person has your driveway situation. Who, is it the code enforcement officer that navigates that permit? Because we don't give permits for single-family.
You're talking about a conditional permit still, or where?
Yeah, I mean, how does that person get relief? Is what I'm wondering.
If you're talking about putting a driveway for if I was to build a house on a
Yes.
landlocked piece of land,
Yes.
I had to cross the wetland.
Yes, you wouldn't come to the planning board for that, right? But so how do you,
You would, though,
but you
if we
would
had
for
a
this?
You would come here for
If we had-
design.
Okay.
Yeah.
well,
Remember we had
you
that?
normally wouldn't, but if it was something that fell under our conditional use, which was crossing a wetlands,
Okay.
I think they'd still have to come to the planning board for
Because
that.
otherwise they'd be going to the ZBA for that, right? Is that?
A variance, and
They
they never
need a
get it.
variance. So instead of that, they would come to us.
If we had that, yeah.
Okay,
conditional use set
okay.
up.
Just remember a while back, somebody wanted to build on that class 6 road off from Swanzey Lake Road that goes up to
Yep,
Chapel
yep,
Hill.
yep.
And they came in here to see if they'd be
Yeah.
allowed to do that and how they were gonna go about doing that, which obviously never became anything.
But they could have gone to the ZBA, but they would say class 6 road.
Well,
right?
the only,
Yeah.
the only one on that particular case that could have authorized it would be the select board.
Because it was class 6 road.
The only one,
That's changing, there's some legislation on that now too.
The first step in that scenario is to go to the select board to see if you can improve the roadway. The
Yeah.
only way you can build on a class 6 is if you improve the roadway to class 5,
Got it.
which is what's happening off of, for ADU off of Christian Hill Road right now.
Yeah, but you check, there's gonna be some legislation on that too.
Yeah, as of right now.
Yeah, so right now, yeah.
This example of Ren's bringing up, with the new statute, zoning statutes that we just approved on wetlands, we're gonna have to consider that as to how close you can be to wetland, to what degree you can infringe, say, within that 75-foot area. Or how are you
The
going to?
75-foot wasn't passed, so
I thought it.
no, it wasn't. That wasn't offered to the voters to vote on. We're gonna work on that.
Oh, what,
It was just that there was it's in the new zoning now,
Yeah.
there's no, you can't cross a wetland, you can't have a dredge and fill permit like you used to get from the state. You cross it, no filling at all for the wetlands, special exceptions, I think we should leave special exceptions just as they are. They're special exceptions and they work, they have worked anyways, but, we're trying out conditional permits for the wetlands district because it changed so drastically. And we have to give some
I
kind
guess
of.
I wouldn't mind thinking beyond to see what else I could think of.
Yeah, well, we'll keep it simple first, I think, probably, if we do conditional permits, we'll see how it works out in the wetlands. And,
It's tested.
yeah, test it there, and
We
again,
would have to do something so we can negate, people have to have a review.
they do,
We need to protect the wetlands, there's no doubt about that.
if
But
we-
people need a relief that.
and they will, yeah, that's what we're doing. They have variance now, but they'll have hopefully a conditional permit afterwards, really. But if we decided to, to change over all the special exceptions in the zoning, we'd have to come up with criteria for them all as to how they would be met, rather than now it's ZBA sees
It'd be an undergoing, that's for sure.
It would be, yeah, but it's a criteria, ZBA has a criteria now.
Is there any
A lot of
complaints about the
amendments,
number?
too.
The builders have been in the governor's ear right now, the legislation, that's why this stuff is all coming down.
So we should probably maybe tentatively try to set a date to get together with the Conservation Committee and,
And the Conservation Commission can also just get together themselves and come up with some stuff and just pass it back and forth.
And I think they're
And then
doing it. And
When we get to that, yeah, I know.
I'd rather have a joint meeting.
We need to get together.
As opposed to something being totally dependent on me. I mean, I don't like that position.
So, well, yeah, we need to have a joint meeting, maybe a few joint meetings, because there's more than just a conditional permit to discuss with the Conservation Commission. But the way I'm thinking about it is that we need to have a bunch of stuff to discuss. You guys come up with ideas, we come up with ideas, and we've got a list together. But then it's time, I think anyways, for a joint meeting, we get together and discuss all that business, iron some of it out, go back to the drawing board a few times, and then get something good.
I agree.
I feel like every time I think about it, I just come up with more questions than answers, so it would be nice to hash it out, as a group.
Yeah.
So, I know that will give us some concrete things to think about, but I prefer to not like walk into decisions until we have a chance to talk.
It doesn't have to be that complicated. I mean, we're trying to issue relief to people.
Yeah,
Who
I think
need it for their
the principle, but that it's the process
It's the
that really
process.
confuses me, yeah.
And again, the process shouldn't be any more complicated than what we normally do here anyway. Seeing the applications, and it should be a little bit easier, although we do the same with our site plan. We have the site plan regulations. We go by the regulations, we weigh it against what the applicant brought in, we take a look if it meets it, and they've got it. The conditional permit or use permits will be about the same thing. They come in, we want to do this, so we weigh it against a criteria. Well, you have to not have another lane to your land. Let's say. You have to not be able to fill in more than X amount of area. Whatever that criteria, it might be 5 or 6 criteria there. If they've met them, then the planning board issues the permit.
But we want to there should be a window for the Conservation Commission to do a layer review as well, right?
Oh, yeah, and there would be, just like they review our site plan.
So they would look at it before it came to us probably, so they
Hopefully,
have
yeah.
recommendations.
Yeah, hopefully they did it before we did it, so they have recommendations too, because yeah, they're a part of it for sure. And then if it meets the criteria, it's just like if it meets the criteria, then the planning board has to issue the permit. We can't, pick and choose the applicants who get a permit and who don't get a permit. That's what we have the criteria. If you match it, you got it. If you don't, you got it.
I just had mentioned that in the past, we've run into situations where we've had an application come in and we haven't had conservation input and we've had to delay. So it'd be, somehow we should be making it so that anything that would possibly entail input from the Conservation Commission goes there first before we even see it.
Well, we added that into our site plan review regulations, that if the Conservation Commission hasn't seen the application yet, then the planning board will automatically continue it to the next. We can open it up and accept it, but it's continued to the next meeting until the Conservation Commission sees it.
But if we do, now I can't recall, did we say that we would be able to, where we would still accept the application and as complete? Because as soon as you do that, the clock starts.
It does, but again, if we can't do it in 65 days and the applicant wants to extend it, that's fine. If they don't want to, then they get whatever decision the board makes. I mean, that's how fair to the applicant. I mean, they might want to get going and starting on permits and that type of stuff. So the planning board can and should accept it if it's complete, obviously. If it isn't, no. But then the applicant can be aware that, yes, the Conservation Commission is gonna have a look at it and weigh in on it as well. And we've got 65 days to run that whole thing through the process.
So when we write our conditional use ordinance, is it an ordinance? Is it, or our conditional use amendment, we amend it only with a process that is,
I think we could call it whatever we want, but it's an amendment to our zoning ordinance.
okay, when we draft that, do we incorporate the policies and practices of our site plan review? In other words, capturing the requirement that the Conservation Commission shall, look at it before we.
We can if we want, that can be one of the criteria on there. If the
Okay.
Conservation Commission hasn't seen it yet, then you wait.
Okay.
And one of those 5 or 6, whatever criteria it is.
So the fact that we have that in our site plan review process doesn't necessarily mean that it's incorporated in the zoning, unless we actually incorporate
It
it.
probably would, because it'd come with an application.
Okay.
And those regulations cover the applications in every part.
Like I say, it's confusing.
It is, but it doesn't have to be. I mean, it can be.
I want it not to be.
And it won't be. Keep it simple.
So, I mean, our example of creating a land bridge, so people can access their buildable part of their lot. To me, it's not only what, but it's how, right? How are you doing that? Because the big difference is just dumping a lot of fill in there and saying, all right, now we got a bridge, versus creating something where the water is still able to permeate through, whatever those wetlands are doing, they should be able to continue to do.
And that can be part of the criteria.
Right. And I don't know if there's like best practice or.
Well, they still have to get a dredge and fill permit from the state, regardless. The state oversees all the wetlands. We have an ordinance on it, but the state still oversees. So if we gave them a conditional permit, they'd still have to get a permit, dredge and fill permit from the state of New Hampshire. If they didn't get that, then they couldn't move forward, even though they got our conditional permit. So yeah, it's just.
And that would be covered in that state permit?
I'm not sure exactly, they look at them case by case, but I'm not exactly sure if they were to look at that. We can make it more stringent here to do what you're saying, that should be a way to, let the water through. Obviously, they would look at drainage, that's one of their things anyway.
I mean, if you block the flow of water, it creates other problems.
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, and those, I'm sure.
What Beaver does is a
Yeah.
good
Yeah.
example. And it doesn't take much to do that. That's why we have French drains around our homes and things like that, right?
So Adam, this is a question about the degree of technical support we could get on this sort of topic. And an ongoing question I have is, I view wetlands as like bowls, that hold water until it's allowed to sort of disperse out, or it stays in that area. But so many of our wetland areas are probably co-occur with areas that are within our areas that are protected by FEMA for the flood maps, the floodplain maps. Is it possible for us to get a map of the town that would show tax parcel, show lots, but also show an overlay of wetlands as identified by, say, Moose Wood, for example, okay? Or there's a state layer for wetlands too, I think.
Yeah, there's.
And a layer that shows the FEMA designated,
We
what
have
is it, like A1 district,
Oh,
that,
yeah,
where you can't build there anyway because you're gonna get flooded out?
I can do that right now.
Yeah, so, do you think we could get like a working map that's big enough?
No.
As a
No.
Yeah.
You're able to read it, if it's a big map like that. I mean, there's a reason why it lives on like GIS,
Yeah.
like on a computer, because like we really need to have that detail. If I print it out, it's gonna be,
Just be mud.
it's not gonna be readable, I don't think.
So if I were to talk to you, in your office, you could perhaps ship me a copy of that I could put on my computer and look?
You can look at it right now if you want to.
Well, I mean, just in life, because I want to send it.
Yeah,
You can
Yeah,
access,
just trying to
you
figure
can
out.
access it at home now.
Oh,
Well,
yeah.
I've tried,
Oh, it's tough
and
to get
it's.
in.
You can come into the office tomorrow, I can show you how to do it.
Okay,
Yeah, if you guys, I'll be there till noon tomorrow.
okay, I think I could.
Yeah, I can show you how to access the GIS, turn on the 2 layers that you want, and
Okay,
then show you how to navigate it around.
okay,
No problem.
yeah. Because it helps for me to have this be concrete. I can theoretically consider a situation where the island is and the road going in and whatnot, but it could be that FEMA's not gonna won't give you a mortgage to build there anyway, because you're gonna be flooded,
Yeah.
So, I'd just like to see some specific examples of.
Look at some area that you're familiar with or something.
What's,
Look at an area you're familiar with and dig deeper or something.
Yeah. Yeah, we can look at the Mattson property.
okay, that'd be fun.
Yeah. There's no floodplain back, but there's wetlands, obviously.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
No problem.
So, what else? So we have Stacy here, who might be an alternate for our planning board, and is looking into it, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. What do you think? It's easy, right? No problem.
I can have an oath.
You got the hardest question of the day.
Yeah.
I have to confirm that Stungio is not coming back.
Yeah.
He hasn't been here.
Well, I talked to him, he's not, I don't think he's going, I just need a confirmation that he's not.
It didn't, his appointment didn't run out yet? I don't know.
No, next year, I think it's Stungio.
Yeah, it was for 3 years, was it?
Yep, so I need to call him, I need confirmation from him that he's not coming back. I gotta make sure I'm following our rules of procedure.
Yeah.
I don't know if he needs to be like expelled or. I'm not sure what the rules are on that. Yeah. Yeah, I just resigned, like a letter of resignation, like Michael Swanzey resigning.
Yeah, there's email for you, right?
Yeah,
That's all
yeah,
he's gonna do.
that would work for me.
Okay. We'll see. What else do we
So I'll
have?
bring up some, and so this is some, Richard, you brought up in the past, but is John Lesser, is he doing anything on that property? I mean, he was gonna
Which
go-
property is that? I don't know. I'm bad with names, I don't know.
Lesser was, over there on Route 10, a landscaping business. He was,
Oh, yeah. John,
He's
yeah.
in that.
So,
he
yeah,
was in and out of there, but he was gonna build the building.
He's got one little shack there, I don't know if he got a permit for it or not, but it's a little small building.
we're gonna build the larger building, and then we're gonna build the residential
Apartments.
The third time, yeah, with traveling nurses.
Yes.
He hasn't done that yet. Hasn't broke ground for that.
Call Chris. Call Chris.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It's not done.
I just don't know when his time is gonna expire, right? He's moving from the board looking for.
Well, he's done the substantial improvement there, because he did all his fill work with the driveway in, and some other things, he's run the business out of there, so he's beyond that.
Is
It's
it?
there, yeah. I would say anyway.
Did you put in his drainage and stuff like
He
that?
did say.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
that was it.
They got the big swale in there.
He had to do all that before he could start bringing in and
That's
selling
what I
flush
thought.
and fill out of there.
Yeah, so they've done quite a bit on that property so far.
I do remember that the apartment buildings were gonna be delayed at least a year, he said.
Yeah. And it looks like the big building is also.
Last summer that you mentioned that?
Yeah, well, whenever he got his, came in for his application, I remember that off the top of my head.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just curious because, I mean, I can see he has the landscape materials and put the blocks to, hold the stuff in their cribs. But,
Well, even if
I
business.
expected a building or foundation or something.
Yeah. Maybe he'll never build it.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Yeah, and if he doesn't, well, he's improved that rock pretty well for somebody to come in there and do something with it, so.
It's not like the planning board is gonna force him to build the building. I mean, if he doesn't wanna build it, then.
The other thing,
happens.
when are we gonna start tackling the impact fee thing? Gonna wait till we get done with whatever you got going?
That's the sign to you. And you've seen you must have read it in the RSA's impact fee section under there.
Oh, of course, so we're gonna want.
And so you'll need to, if you're gonna pursue it, you'll need to decide, probably check with the bookkeeper to see how that's gonna work. Because it has to be recorded at the end of each year,
Yeah.
and the bookkeeper has to say how much was, doled out for this part of this project and all. How the whole thing is
That's
used.
up to the administration to worry about that. We set up, it has to be a zoning amendment.
It does.
We have to figure out what our fee schedule is.
Yeah.
And my recommendation would be not put it on home builders, like some poor young family that can just barely afford to build their home, doesn't need another $10,000 on top of that. So I think we could go away from residential. I wouldn't go away with workforce housing or 3-family homes, anything above 2-family.
Yeah, it'd be anything at the planning board.
Right.
Sees.
Commercial,
Planning board.
because,
does not see.
we're talking about needing a water situation over here. Well, if we had impact fees in, a lot of money could be going into that, for that.
Well, maybe not, because we don't own a water company here. I mean,
Maybe
maybe
not.
they charge an impact fee,
Yeah,
so we don't know.
with this other stuff he was talking about with the zoning for the lots and stuff that I've been talking about, what's the next step the legislator's gonna do? I talked about this 2 years ago, where they're gonna push this issue, because I'm hearing, being up in the Republican
The
Party.
issue being what?
The issue of building houses and the developers are pushing the state to rewrite the zoning laws themselves.
Yeah.
So they've actually got a committee now, they're not only pushing laws this year, they've got a committee set up to say, we're gonna study it, and maybe we need to bring all these zoning right to the state level. So we won't be deciding zoning after a while. It's gonna be one size fits all for every town.
Well, I hope you're wrong.
Well, I do too. I fight with it, I go to Concord at least 5 to 10 times a month. Okay, tell them, I don't think Swanzey wants this. They're also, because of guys like me, they're putting in a legislation now that says if I can't go there as a planning board member of the town of Swanzey and testify, no town official can testify in the legislation.
Oh,
Any town official, city.
in that capacity, because you're a town official, you can still go testify there as long as you're not in capacity.
On behalf of the towns.
I would think so too.
Well, Mike Brantley went with me one day on this, with the welfare thing. Okay, we went up and testified for that, say we need some kind of residency requirement before we start paying these bills for people. Okay, so we went and testified on that, and he did it as the city, as a town administrator. And there's nothing wrong with me telling him who I am, I don't think, because who better than us here listen to the people, what they want for the town. We have the master plan we go by, we have people like Mark and Jay came in when building over there and wanted us to change some zoning, which we did. So I'm trying to put those things to those people up there. Last year when I was up there doing this, one of the legislators looked at me and said, well, those don't pass through, we don't want to take over zoning. So I was up there this year, really? On 84, I said, really? Well, what's this? You're telling me that you don't want to take over, but you're doing it.
I think if you're gonna testify on behalf of the planning board, you need to state from the planning board that you guys all agree on. I will not do that, though. I will say that. I don't feel comfortable doing that.
I had passed this by Mike Brennan, he said it's fine. I said I'm the member of the planning board, but these are my views.
Yeah.
Say you trust Mike Brandon?
No, I passed it by Mike Brennan.
I had a good job, man.
No, I always make sure that they know these are my views, and from what I talk to people in town,
Yeah.
these are what they're telling me.
Totally. Yeah, it's a good, I mean, obviously why you can't.
I'm not gonna say I'm the spokesman for the planning board, because I'm not.
Well, you could though, you could.
You could if everybody agreed to what I was saying.
You can do that, I don't see why you couldn't. But I do wait to administration.
But they're gonna have more pushback. The only reason why the state library is not gonna get closed down is because a whole bunch of librarians and people went up there and screamed at it.
Right.
That's the only way you get things done, is you have to go testify.
And build the proper.
And we have the right representative up there that's trying to help us. Sly is on that committee, the government committee, municipal government committee.
Well, that's good.
Well, that's good, yes, because he agreed with us most of the time.
Doesn't mean that you'll get too far, is that what you're saying?
It's only one vote out of about 14. And then when it goes to, well, I guess what bothers me the most is some of this is being passed by voice vote and not recording the vote. I don't think anything should be passed on a voice vote up there.
And by this, you mean taking the zoning away from the town, is that what you're talking about?
Well, yeah. That, I don't think any legislation anywhere should ever be at that level. It should be by voice vote, it should be a recorded vote, so that if we disagree with our legislators, we have a chance to primary them and then vote them out of office if we don't like what they're doing.
Yeah.
But they hide that sometimes, when they know it's not popular.
So what legislation of concern are you looking at?
Well, right now it's 84.
Which is what?
That's the one that says if you have sewage and water, you cannot require a bigger lot than 22 square feet.
Lot restriction.
And there's another one on there, the lot restriction is you have to take 51% of the rest of your residential area. Any place you have a single family home, okay, 51% of that has to be 1.5 acres, not 3. We have 3 in our
I'll just say 2. read somewhere that
Unless
it
they-
wasn't three, but it has to, it could be reduced.
Unless
to
they
two.
did an amendment in the last couple of days with what was passed, from what I saw.
Okay.
But even two, still, we have three.
We have
A lot of towns.
Yeah. So while Keene has even more, they used to have a 5, and I think they went down to
They
3.
did have a 5 up there.
So,
and I think
Yeah,
that's-
so they can change all those rules all they want. If you don't extend the sewer, and all the
well,
properties are
guess
taken
what?
up,
You know what's coming down the road, I was gonna mention that. It's
How
coming
do
down
they
the road,
force
is
it down
they're
to-
gonna tell towns,
How would
okay,
they-
now you have to put in sewage and water, here, 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 and there.
how would they force you to do that?
How do they force you to pay for all your local welfare? They
Yeah.
mandate it. We have, our budget this year is $280,000 for our local welfare. And we have to pay for it, we get no help from the state. And if we go over budget, we gotta find the money. And what we had some legislation, our friend, Jen Rose, representative, in 17, actually introduced some to have a residential requirement, but we can't do it. Of having at least 30 to 90 days being a resident. Because what's happening is the developers are taking their applications.
Oh, yeah, that's what she was in here a couple
Right.
months ago.
And they're giving them the form that we are required to have, given at the same time, and telling them, if you can't pay your bills, go to the town of Swanzey. This is the guy that sued us 3 times. And he wants to run for state, as a US Senate this time. He called me, wanted to set up a talk and a meeting with our Republican convention in town. I refused him. He says, I'll call the state GOP chair, call them all you want. This is my town. Unless my people in my committee says they want to talk to him, he's not coming.
Speaking of that individual and the airport thing, where it's closed now, Adam, have you received the age restriction part of that deed?
I have no idea what you're talking about. Where do you have any problem?
It said that they had to be senior housing, because, right?
Right,
Yeah,
They went to
62
school,
or 62 or
and it was-
older,
because
because
they're
they're
being
being
city.
approved. And that was supposed to be, once it closed, that was supposed to be included in the deed.
It's a game restriction.
So can you verify that that's been done?
It's very easy.
Now is not the time to bring it up, but yes, I can verify.
Yeah, it's easy to verify, just call the county.
Right, isn't that the one we just extended a year?
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll get a year.
When they close, that's when the new deed should have been done.
Did they close?
Yes, they closed.
Okay. I can look into it, yeah. Now is not the time to, like, call me at the office and I can look into it. So,
How about pallets? Do I call you at the office to complain about
Chris.
pallets?
code enforcement, don't call me. I'm gonna send you to Chris.
Just transfer you to Chris.
Unless I need a pallet, then I'll go take the pallet myself.
Okay. Is that the point that we could, if we wanted to?
I
The
mean,
point is to make the
I don't see why
right.
not. If I see a pallet on the side of the road, I need a pallet.
Fire.
Yeah, if you guys need something from the office, call me in, because from here, I can't do anything. So I can look into it, but, send me an email, that helps, because I can just keep it flagged in my email to look into. So now, to remember, I'm gonna go back to the minutes, and I'll see the minutes, and I'll remember to check, but, yeah.
Okay.
For the pallets, yeah, call Chris. For anything else, if you need something from us, it's best to send us an email, so we have it in writing.
Any kind of enforcement, call Chris.
Any kind
The
of.
planning board has no authority to enforce these rules.
Planning board and
Just-
planners.
That's right, but
I'm just hoping you'll carry my, you'll do my word for me.
I won't. No, I'm sorry, I won't. You have to call Chris.
But the town, we all as a town, we vote the laws in, zoning ordinance, that's local legislative body, we vote it in. Planning board administers them, and the select board or their designee, which is the code enforcement officer now, enforces them. So planning board has no authority over enforcement.
Yeah, if you see any weird buildings going up, Chris, if you see work being done, that might not be permanent.
Yeah, you see something that don't look right, you just go talk to Chris, go check that out.
Go talk to Chris. Send him an email, please send him.
I haven't found a couple of dump sites for him yet, I used to find them all the time for,
He likes to start records early and often, so send him an email, that helps him keep track of what,
What's his last name?
Levy, L-E-V.
So we're almost ready for adjournment.
semi-colon 20.
21, yeah, it's right in there, so I suggest you just read it and see what it entails.
Chris and I are both in agreement that we want that to be.
Yeah, but you guys don't count, you don't.
No, but we can help you out.
They can help.
No, they would be administering it, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
You wouldn't be able to.
There is this thing in there too, take a look at, we can put a waiver for somebody we know is very poor or something like that, or there's a legitimate reason why they waiver the fees.
We probably should be, stick away from that,
It's only
should be across the board. Yeah, not necessarily residential homes, we don't see them in here anyway. We see the commercial stuff and the multifamily, and that's when you get the impact fees. But we just have to decide how to charge the impact fees, what percentage for here or there. And they also have to be tied to something that project will impact in the town. We can't get an impact fee for something over here in West Swansea to help build water or sewer or North Swansea. It doesn't work that way. It has to show that it has impact on that particular part of infrastructure for the town. A road, the water, sewer, something like that. But it's got to be for that part of the town. It can't be for something else. But read it through. It's interesting read, or if you're not tired, it'll make you tired.
You were gonna prepare a chart anyway. I have a chart, but we don't want to use lebanon.
No, if we're gonna do it, we should do our own. Right, but it's a good starting point, but we should do our own besides.
How would that be applied to the police department or the fire district?
A portion.
By calls, if it's like a multifamily
Okay,
here,
so you do percentages.
they would figure how many calls are
Well,
gonna
what
get.
it works something like the CIP, where you have accounts set up, and somebody comes in and bills something, okay? You have a chart of, say, this type of business has a 1.1, for 1.1 per square foot, like $1 per square foot. They have a 20,000 square foot building, it's $1 square foot, and they have to give $20,000.
But
It goes into the fee for, like you were saying,
if you can't show that it impacts $20,000 on that particular item that you're charging,
but you see, everything can be lined up for the different accounts. So each time you do the fee, it can go into separate accounts. It have to go just to one account.
it doesn't anyways, right? You have it because it has to be specific.
When you have
Specifically for that
multi-family housing or apartment buildings, how many children are going to go to the school district?
Yeah,
So our portion of the cost of the school district can be portioned out that way.
yeah, can be.
Fire department, all that is, do you have to have new fire equipment because of this? Well, we had to buy more defibrillators, we had to buy another fire engine or whatever. We have to build a new fire station.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, read that whole thing through.
It's kind of complicated, but I think it's needed. It should have been done 10 years ago, in my opinion, but that's just my opinion.
I know, we don't.
We would have had a better shot at improving this water around here, the sewage.
Perhaps not, hard to say, because we wouldn't have gotten $6 million worth of
When
impact fees.
West Swansea Apartment came in, they kind of had to have their own water, right?
No, they didn't.
Or their own sewer, one or the other.
The apartments over here are
Yeah.
Marlins, no, they tapped off of the West Swansea Water Company and sewer were already over there.
No, see, then you had to say, well, when tapped in, I was tapped out, we gotta extend our water, we gotta.
But you actually have to extend it in order to charge
Well,
the money.
you charge the money.
I mean, the
but
water
then
is
you
right
extend
there.
it. Yeah.
You have to actually do it before you can charge for it,
No,
or
you-
vice versa.
No, you don't. You can charge for it, get it in, and then do it. As long as you do it,
You have
and
to
you have
give it back if you don't do it.
6 years to do it, to use those funds on, for whatever purpose is needed, as long as you tie it to that development.
Right, exactly.
But it doesn't have to be done beforehand.
It has to be done before the thing goes online.
Well, you don't collect until it's done. You set the fees here. Okay, you set the fees here, according to whatever chart we develop. Okay, you charge them here, then when they get their occupational, or when it becomes, if you don't do an occupational certificate, when it becomes used for its purpose, then you collect the fee.
Right, yeah, only when they finish the product.
Right.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion to adjourn.